Good morning, everyone. Hope you've had a really good week, and that you've been putting all the marketing, your business skills to into place since our last meeting. So now on to week 8 of elevating your exit. And today we're going to look about negotiating your business sale. So you found one or two people who might be interested in buying your business, but now is the critical time to make sure that you get the very best price and the best outcome for your business. So imagine that you're about to enter a negotiation to sell your business. You're probably feeling a mixture of excitement and nerves, which is pretty normal. To succeed in negotiations, it's critical that you understand the dynamics and psychology at play between yourself and the potential buyer. And it's the first step in that is to research your buyer. I've seen it so many times that people don't do due diligence on their buyer. So the buyer will come in, they'll look at your business, they'll look at you, they'll look at your team, and they'll do several weeks of due diligence. It's really important that you do the same on your buyer. You need to understand them. You need to understand their background, whether they've had any acquisitions in the past, what's happened to those acquisitions. And you also want to understand their strategic goals, what they might do with their business going forward. Not only does that give you peace of mind when you're looking at the future legacy of your business, but it also allows you to get your price right and make sure that you've got that minimum amount that you'll go to when you actually negotiate selling your business. You also, the more you find out about your buyer, the more you can anticipate their needs and concerns, so you can tailor your approach accordingly. You have to put yourself into your buyer's shoes and understand their perspective. What is their motivation to come to you and try to buy your business? What are their pain points? What are they mostly concerned about? Or if they've done previous acquisitions, where have they gone right and where have they gone wrong? If you can understand that, you can start to empathize with your buyer, and that means that you have a much more collaborative and productive negotiation environment. I think this is really good and really healthy for any business. I've seen far too many times that the professionals will get in the way. If you have a business broker, I think it's worth leaving them to one side and going into this yourself, because you can have much more open conversations with the potential buyer without the broker there and without the business professionals there. It's only when you get to a snag that you should bring your broker in, or your accountant or your solicitor. Remember, negotiations are not just about the numbers. They're about building relationships and about finding mutually beneficial solutions. I worked with Rachel. I've mentioned her on previous calls. She had a thriving marketing agency, but thought it was about time to walk away and enjoy a quieter life. When she entered negotiations with her potential buyer, she knew that preparation and understanding the buyer's motivations was critical. So she spent quite a lot of time looking at the buyer's background and found that they'd done a couple of acquisitions. She looked at, fortunately, she knew people within those businesses, so she was able to understand how those acquisitions and integrations went. And that was really important then for her to see what the buyer's motivations were and what issues he had in his previous acquisitions, which really put her in a good space. So Rachel took the time out to research the background, and by putting herself in the buyer's shoes and really understanding their motivations and pain points, she was able to anticipate their needs and concerns and answer questions before they were asked. Ultimately, they had a really good relationship over that negotiation period, and the sale price exceeded her expectations that she'd set by 20%. So that's what you can do, but you've really got to understand your buyer a little bit more. So how do you set realistic realistic expectations? Remember, I've said it on the previous meetings, your business is only worth what somebody is willing to pay for it. So what you need to do is to go into it thinking that you want to make sure that they want to pay more for your business and what they find out. So before you enter the negotiation, be well prepared and set realistic expectations. preparation is the biggest thing when it comes to any negotiation. So start by creating detailed financial projections that accurately, and I say accurately, reflect your company's performance and potential. So many times I will look at businesses that are for sale and they may have had a 5% growth a year, and their financial projections are saying post acquisition they'll have a 20 or 30% growth in a year. That's not realistic, and your buyer will see straight through it. So you need to think, okay, we've put a lot of things in place, we can probably increase it by 10%, but have a realistic increase in that amount of additional sales and profit a year. If you can set realistic expectations for the sale price based on this, then that's a solid foundation for your negotiation. And looking at that, in general, a small business with a profit of less than £1 million will likely get about 4 times that EBIT. The profit of the business will be a realistic asking price. It does depend on your sector, and with tech businesses they can be 10 times turnover, but it's a good starting point. It's also essential for you to conduct a comprehensive valuation of your business, and that's where we come in at the Master Plan series. We can actually offer you a full, accurate valuation of your business for free. This is based on 450,000 recent sales of business in the UK. So although it's not 100% accurate, it really gives you a very good idea about that. And that if that turns up and it says your business is worth £3 million, it's a good starting point and a good solid foundation for your negotiations. Take into account all factors, including industry trends, market conditions, and comparable sales. The good news for you at the moment is that the market has picked up. We saw the multiples dropping quite a lot after lockdown finished. And that wasn't necessarily because the value of the business had gone down, because obviously all businesses had potential to come up above what they had been during lockdown. But the critical path was the fact that no lenders wanted to lend buyers money. But that's all changed in the last 3 to 6 months. We're starting to see lenders really opening up their wallets. So buyers are in a much better position to buy, which should mean that you get more than one person fighting to get your business. And if they want to buy your business and there's a competition, it's like when you're selling your house, the more people who are competing to buy your business, the higher the price will go, which is good news for you. So what is it really important when you're setting realistic expectations, though, is to say, what is your lowest point possible? So it's very normal that you will negotiate initially a sale price of, for example, 3 million. And through the process of due diligence, when you open your books, the buyer will actually say, that's not a realistic price. We'll give you 2.5 million. Be ready for that. But be ready to know what your minimum price that you will go to is. And if you're not going to get that, perhaps your business isn't ready to sell, and that's what you need to consider. I had an example of David. He had an e-commerce business, and it was booming. Obviously, during lockdown, all e-commerce businesses did really well, but he knew that he had a demonstrable strong growth and profitability, and his forecast for the next 3 years followed that pattern. So it was a realistic one. And that he built really good trust up with the potential buyers. He worked with his accountant and created the detailed financial projections and a comprehensive valuation of his business. And so he was in a really strong position when he went into his negotiations. He was very confident and he had a clear understanding of his bottom line. So he did have more than one person interested in his business because of those great projections, and he ultimately sold for 15% over his initial target. So really positive news, and you can do exactly the same yourself, but you have to be realistic with your expectations and with your projections. Nextly, we're going to look at how you can maximize your price and your terms. It's important to do this to highlight some of the aspects that we covered in week 2, which was about understanding what your unique selling point of your business is. These really need to be emphasized during your negotiating process. This helps you to create a competitive bidding environment and can work in your favor. So if we look at the house example, if your house has a treble garage, then it really appeals to families that have a lot of cars, or a husband who is a petrol head. So um, treble garage is a good selling point, and it means that a lot of guys who like cars will be interested in your house, which is likely to push the price up. That was their unique selling point. What is yours? You need to be clear on that so that you can create a competitive bidding environment, like in the house scenario. If you can negotiate with multiple buyers, you can leverage their interest to drive up the sale price and also negotiate more favourable terms. So don't hesitate to explore creative deal structures, such as earn-out provisions or retention packages for key employees. These can really help bridge the gap and create win-win situations for both parties. I did this with a friend of mine who was selling his awards business. He got quite a good price for it, but it wasn't meeting his expectations. So I worked with him and we were able to negotiate with the buyer that he was retained as a consultant for the next 4 years to be able to offer his services, an agreed rate for that, which gave him a fantastic income for the next 4 years. He also negotiated, we worked together to negotiate free entry to the awards ceremonies and flights and accommodation because it was a global award, so it happened in different countries. So that was a good way of actually negotiating more than just the price. He had a more income coming from it for subsequent years. Remember, your goal isn't just to get the highest price, but to ensure a smooth transition and set your business up for long-term success, because you won't be necessarily the one making the money and the profit from it, but you want to make sure that your customers are happy, your staff are happy, and that your legacy continues. I'll give you another example. Lisa and Mark, who I've mentioned before, they owned a software company which was very successful. They had proprietary technology, which all their competitors were desperate to get, and a very good, strong customer base, which meant that they had a lot of customers. They weren't relying on just one or two. And that customer base they could demonstrate was growing about 10% a year. Because they were able to highlight the software and the strong customer base, they were able to create a competitive bidding environment by engaging multiple buyers. They negotiated favourable terms, and in the case of Lisa and Mark, they were keen to make sure that they stayed working part-time in the business to be able to deliver the sales forecasts, and because they had earner with an upside, that if they delivered above that growth, they would get extra money. So they stayed on for 2 years, and they ended up getting much more money out of the business as a consequence, because they achieved 10-15% above their target, and they had an earn-out structure that gave them not only that extra £1 million, but a bonus of 500,000 on top of that. They also were desperate to make sure that some of their staff were looked after. So as part of their negotiating, they also managed to get, I think it was about 3 of the staff who were in critical roles, to get a bonus given to them on acquisition, which was paid for by the buyer, and also a bonus structure in place, which tied in with their earn-out. So once the sales and profitability exceeded the forecast targets, those other 3 people also did very well out of it, which made everyone really happy. So stop and have a think about it. What's your USP? What do you want to get out of it? And also think about your exit strategy. It's very rare that somebody will pay 100% of the asking price of your business or the agreed price for your business up front, normally you get some sort of deferred consideration or earnout. If you don't want to carry on working for the business, deferred consideration is better, which is hitting the target. If you do want to carry on and make sure that there's a smooth transition, I would recommend an earnout, because that means that you then get a chance to not only get the money that's been agreed for your business, but an upside to that as well. You can contact me anytime if you want to find out a little bit more detail about that, or if you indeed want another session just on earnout and deferred consideration and different deal structures. Okay, so you're in the lucky position where you've got a number of buyers, and but whether you've got one buyer or several, you'll always find during the due diligence process there'll be a bit of jiggery pokery about the numbers, and yourself and the buyer will probably come up and have counter offers. The buyer will often have objections of something that they found that they weren't expecting as they go through your financial, your operational, or your legal due diligence. The important thing is to make sure that these aren't a deal breaker to the acquisition. And the way to do that is to make sure that you maintain a constructive dialogue and stay focused on finding solutions. This is where I really recommend you make sure that you have a lot of one-to-one meetings with your buyer directly. The broker or your one of your professionals could be with you, but it's a lot easier to form that relationship, but get the trust built up and get some honesty in the negotiations if it's just you and your buyer. So when you're faced with a counter offer, so you're expecting 2 million, the buyer comes back in and says, I'm going to pay you 1.8 because of this. It's really it's really important to take the time to understand the buyer's perspective and the reasoning behind that proposal. This is really important to do before you meet with them, because it will help you to craft a thoughtful and strategic response. If the buyer raises objections or concerns, you need to address those proactively and transparently and provide additional information or clarification to alleviate their worries. You should get ready to expect a lot of these because there always are. And what I would recommend is I always keep an Excel document, which is almost like an FAQ. That will contain every question that is raised during the negotiation and the answer to that. It allows you to track what the discussions have been over time. Those will be questions that were raised by the potential buyer and also questions that are raised by yourself. But it's really important to make sure that those are all kept on a spreadsheet so that you can refer back to them. If you encounter a potential deal breaker when you go through that, don't be afraid to think outside the box and propose creative solutions. So sometimes, for example, I've come across businesses where they'll say, I'm reducing the price because I think your forecast and your projections are too high. And in that way, I normally would counsel that the best thing to do is to look at an earnout structure where if you're confident that those sales figures can be achieved, that you put your money against it. So if you're expecting 1 million, they come back with, if you're expecting 2 million, they come back with 1.5, then you should have the 2 million tagged to what you say in your projections. And if you achieve above that, you should get an upside on that. It's a really good way to get through the deal breaker of them offering you less money than you want. Remember to try to find some mutually beneficial compromises to keep that deal moving forward, and try to do it quickly. Keep your Excel spreadsheet with the questions maintained. Make sure you put dates on it, because I've seen negotiations slipped from 6 weeks to 6 months because people aren't answering questions quickly enough. Remember, the goal is not to win the negotiation, but rather to find an outcome that works for both parties. Andrew was somebody I worked with who had a manufacturing company. So they agreed, I think it was 3.5 was the initial suggested price that was agreed. But during due diligence, the buyers raised a real big concern that his equipment that was in place was really old. So he then the buyer came in with a price that was a counter offer of 20% less than the asking price, which will obviously caused a lot of concern to Andrew at the time. So we worked together on it, put our heads together, and eventually came up with a solution. So Andrew went back and said, okay, let's allow for a capital expenditure budget to be able to replace some of the equipment, but actually here's a fantastic summary of all of the maintenance records of each bit of the equipment to show just how good it was, the fact that it was regularly serviced and maintained. And he was also able to demonstrate that using this older equipment, they were able to get loads more efficiencies. And so he was able to show efficiency gains and productivity gains using the old equipment, which kind of blew out of the water a lot of the objections from the buyer. So the buyer accepted that, and he was happy with the fact that the budget had been left in place for some more capital expenditure. So the sale price was then negotiated and agreed at 5% lower than the initial asking price. Right, next we want to talk about the Q&A. You will have regular Q&A sessions with your potential buyers. It's all part of the due diligence process. It's really important to keep engaged on those. And as I said, essential that you keep it all written down and recorded. And that would be the question asked, the date it's asked, and the answer that came back from there. It's a really good chance to address the most common questions and concerns. One of the ones I really wanted to highlight was very often a topic that comes up all the time is buyers want to negotiate a significantly longer due diligence process. Don't get yourself caught into this. Sometimes the DD goes from 6 weeks to 6 months. You really want to make sure that you set some boundaries for that, because ultimately 3 to 6 months down the line, your buyer may drop out and you've lost the opportunity to sell to somebody else. So your buyer will often ask for exclusivity during the due diligence, and I would say that's great, and that's showing a sign of trust between you two to have exclusivity. But if their due diligence is extended too long, that's really going to impact on you selling the business. So I would agree an extension of a couple of weeks, but really make sure that the exclusivity finishes during that time if they extend due diligence too long. It's a challenging situation. You want to be accommodating to the buyer's needs, but you also need to think about protecting your own interests and maintaining momentum. The key to all of these negotiations, and an example like that, is to find the right balance. So perhaps you can, as a solution, consider proposing a phased due diligence process where the buyer can conduct an initial review, which maybe takes 4 weeks, so a nice short time frame for that, followed by a more detailed investigation if necessary. And it's great to have a meeting with the buyer after those 4 weeks to really look at where the pain points are and the concerns that they have during that initial due diligence. This approach is great because it shows flexibility and good faith while keeping the deal flow moving forward, and that's a really important thing to do. You've got to remember you're dealing with another human being. It's really important to keep open communication and be willing to find creative solutions. It can really help to overcome obstacles on the way and help keep your acquisition on a deal on track. So think about a phased due diligence, encourage them to keep within the time of the exclusivity of the deal, and try not to be pushed beyond 3 months, because very often you'll then have to go through a cycle if they drop out and go back to the drawing board if you're exclusive with them. Keep your deal momentum flowing and provide the buyer with necessary information at all stages, and do keep a record of it, because there's so many questions that are asked during the due diligence process. It's good to show when they come back with the same question, because they will, that you've already provided an answer. So there's a lot to go through on the negotiation, and it's only a small part of the deal. So I wanted to highlight to you again the benefits of the sales success circle. Navigating complexities of business sale negotiations can be really daunting, but you do not have to go through it alone. The Sales Success Circle is a membership site, and it's there to build up a community of business owners who are selling their businesses. It's there to provide you with support, resources, and guidance to help you succeed. Within the Sales Success Circle, there is an extensive library which includes negotiation tips and strategies. And indeed, I have just released a new book which totally covers every aspect of your negotiation. So that is available on the Sales Success Circle, or you can buy it on Amazon. You'll have the opportunity as well, as part of the Sales Success Circle, to participate in active role plays. So you can role play the discussions that you might have with a potential buyer, just to prepare you and get you ready for those sort of objections. And that will really help to improve your negotiation skills if you haven't been through it before. Our community includes loads of experienced entrepreneurs and industry experts, and they're always ready to share their key insights and offer advice tailored to your specific situation. So think about joining the Sales Success Circle. It allows you a great opportunity to gain knowledge, confidence, and support to maximize your sale price and secure the best possible terms for your business sale. As we conclude this session today on negotiating the best deal for your business, let's recap on the key takeaways. First and foremost, understanding the dynamics and psychology of negotiations is essential. If you can put yourself into your buyer's shoes and think of it from their perspective, it really helps you to understand the way that they're thinking and helps you with the negotiation. Research the buyer's background and their motivations, and anticipate their needs and concerns by putting yourself in that buyer's shoes. And then you would create a much more collaborative and productive negotiating environment where you can tackle these issues straight on and come up with solutions that work for both sides. Secondly, thorough preparation is essential. So you want to make sure that you and your accountant draw up some really believable financial projections, and make sure that you get a proper valuation so you'll know what your starting point is, and then you can set realistic expectations for your sale price. Your buyer is never going to offer straight away the price that you want, and they will probably 70% of the time ask you to name your price. So you need to be absolutely clear how much your business is realistically worth. Do have a valuation, and we can offer you an amazingly accurate valuation for your business with no money. You need to understand your bottom line and enter negotiations with confidence. The third thing from today is to make sure that you secure strategies, develop strategies that maximize your sale price and secure favorable terms. That includes being crystal clear what the unique selling point of your business or your product or your service is. And you want to use that to create a really competitive bidding environment. You also need to think about creative deal structures. If they're not offering you enough money up front, look at other ways to approach that. Maybe you can hold back and demonstrate the growth and push back the sale for 6 months. Maybe you just need to walk away from that sale to be able to do that. But the other option, which I really like, is if you're tied to your business and you're confident about those projections, agree to stay on, agree a consultancy fee to stay with the business, so that you get paid for that, and agree an upside so that when you deliver, you can have a much better financial return. The fourth point is be prepared to handle counter offers. objections and deal breakers effectively. You need to maintain a constructive dialogue. Do deal with these things straight on. They're not going to go away, and they're going to get bigger unless you deal with them straight away. So address concerns that might be raised by your buyer proactively. And then you need to propose mutually beneficial solutions. Remember, you don't have to negotiate this. You don't need to navigate this process alone there. In the Sales Success Circle, if you're part of the community, we've got the support, the resources, and the guidance you need to succeed. So if you can leverage the knowledge and experience of our community, this can really help you approach negotiations with much greater confidence and achieve the best possible outcome for your business. So I hope you've enjoyed the call today. If you have any questions at all, you can contact us. The email address, Kirsty at the Master Plan Series, and we will send you out a copy of this recording. Thank you, everyone. Bye.